Welcome to the KFiles. Today we are investigating the terrible John Lee Roche in Paper Hearts. Bad person.
Oh, I mean, bad doesn't even begin to describe Katie.
Welcome back to the lush basement office. It's a good day to be a KFiles fan. We're talking about Paper Hearts on the show. One of the most important serial killers in all of X-Files-dom. One of my personal favorite Vince Gilligan episodes. Let's get into it. I'm Katie. I'm your host.
I'm your co-host, Kryzzalia, and we're coming at you from HollywoodRedux.com.
Yep. All right, so we're talking about Paper Hearts. It's in the 4th season. We're before Demons, which is kind of a similar episode in the 4th season where Mulder's having these dreams and remembering things about his sister and her abduction.
The dream sequences here.
Yeah,
Jesus
and it also
Christ,
has, lots of great stuff. And it also has elements of, later on in the 7th season when we actually do find out what happens to Samantha, episode duo called Sein und Zeit and Closure. That pairing, very similar to this as well. Lots of similarities. For example, the Tooth Fairy is specifically listed in this episode, and in that there's Santa Claus is referenced. So there are like some very interesting thematic similarities. But for now, it's a Mulder episode. It's a Mulder Monster of the Week. Mulder has these dreams periodically, like Demons I mentioned is one in this season again where he has these dreams.
I would say dreams is a very light term. I would see them more as nightmares than anything.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, reliving all that stuff all the time, that's a nightmare in itself, dude.
Well, ultimately, it's something a little bit more as well, which is a really cool facet of this episode that Scully brings to light, where Mulder's talking about this dream he's having, and she even says a dream is the answer to a question. She repeats his own quote back to him about a dream being the answer to a question.
Nice little reminder, you know?
Yeah, which is Mulder's quote from, originally he said that to her in Aubrey. So, and it kind of, that quote reappears in the show over and over and over again. It's a very important clue to understanding these Monster of the Week episodes on a story level, on an invisible level, on a character's emotional level, like Mulder's emotional state.
Emotional Mulder, man. Oh, I love seeing emotional Mulder. It is, I mean, it's not great, but Duchovny, I love you, man. You're awesome, dude.
Duchovny's acting is top-notch in this episode. 4th season Duchovny acting is really lovely.
You can actually see the improvement. So, like, Duchovny, good on you, man. I love you, dude. You're doing great.
And you can't deny the power of the floppy 4th season hair.
Yes, the
Mulder hair and Scully hair. I mean, Scully too, but Mulder hair especially is one of my favorite.
I feel like
things
that's going to be a segment very soon. Just a full-on podcast for all the hair messes and like wardrobe malfunctions.
It's hours that we could be spending on this, on just hair and makeup alone.
Saying,
Speaking of wardrobe, Scully wears this plum suit in this episode that I was just like,
there it is.
Boom. It's like a classy dame from another era in the FBI, just like spicing it like a pop of color in the FBI walking through.
She makes it work, man. She makes it work.
But we digress. I think one of my favorite things about the episode is the way in which it deals with dreams. The show talks about dreams a lot, and it really does do the work of proving to you the way that, especially for the characters, but maybe perhaps in reality, in the world, in people, but especially for the characters, that the dreams that they experience on the show really do provide windows into, their own emotional state, what they're afraid of, what their particular monsters are, so to speak.
Right.
And also what's going on in the case. The case is always like a manifestation of that.
Yeah, that's crazy that, like, subconsciously you're still like trying to solve the case within your dreams, and
Mulder's
the
been
way
solving
they played it out
years.
in the dream was very well done. It's like the smallest details that he would overlook, boom, they're all being like showcased there. So
and now we have this new element
Real
too,
detective, man.
where Mulder's been having this recurring dream, which seems to have summoned. He calls it a nexus, this connection with John Lee Roche, with the killer, with the serial killer in this case. And I think that we're meant to understand that the laser pointer dot that leads Mulder all around and then spells out words for him, my feeling is that is Roach in the dream, that is like Roach leading Mulder on a little bit of a chase, perhaps subconsciously at first because he doesn't seem to understand it when Mulder talks about it, but then later when he gets away from Mulder at the hotel and before that final climactic scene with him, Then he uses the dream against Mulder. He uses Samantha like bait in the dream to distract Mulder so that he can escape. And then he says bye. He writes bye in a little laser pointer speech. So I think that's what's going on there. That's their connection.
That's a good theory, actually. That's a really good theory, actually.
That's their connection, and it's interesting because it's the dream is happening to Mulder, and Roach is limited to the laser pointer. So it's kind of like I do wonder if maybe often serial killers want the attention, want to have attention back on them, and I wonder if maybe it was some kind of thing of like Roach was needing some attention, wanting attention, feeling forgotten by his soulmate Mulder.
Right.
And
he was a little lonely.
And was dreaming himself. Yeah, was dreaming himself. And then Mulder has been having this recurring dream because of his sister, and so it all got tied together. But it is something to note because when we do find out what happened to Mulder's sister, it's not too far off from a fate that she would have met had Roach actually kidnapped her.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
but, it would take away from the X-Files completely, though. Like, it would take away Mulder's whole storyline of his whole search, his whole goal. So
yeah, well, it's interesting you say that because the story that we're seeing play out over and over and over again, and Vince Gilligan, who wrote this episode, even said it's kind of a myth story, this particular episode. And the story that we hear on the X-Files over and over and over again is the story of a little girl who dies. Essentially, she goes missing. We think she's missing. Actually, she's dead. And so, we see this play out in so many ways on the show. And in this episode, the little girl, is alive, lives. The little girl lives. That Mulder is actually able to save a little girl's life. And, Roach dies instead.
The little girl from the plane.
Yeah.
Oh, man. She was creepy looking, though.
Yeah.
She was very cute and creepy at the same time.
Yeah. Well, X-Files kids have that
X-Files
aura.
kids, man.
Hashtag X-Files kids.
Very uncomfortable. Very creepy.
Hashtag children
you
of
guys
the corn.
did it, man.
Well, especially, this was when we were in Vancouver still, and they were casting from the Vancouver pool. Right. Those kids are much creepier than LA acting kids, I think. That's my opinion.
No, they'll scale creepiness. You guys nailed it, that's for sure. No doubt.
Yeah, and also shout out to the city of Vancouver, too, for that final climactic set that they used, the big trolley graveyard. Wow, that's a real set.
That was really cool.
Real freestanding set that they used for that. And Vince Gilligan actually wrote that scene to be filmed in that set because of how cool it is.
It seems like this episode, there was a lot of things written for particular people in particular places, right? Like the role of...
Yeah, good points.
Like the man himself, right?
Yeah. Well, you could argue, so you could make this argument about a lot of X-Files episodes, especially Monster of the Week ones that are fixated on one episode or the other, or one character or the other, I mean. So, this episode is a Mulder Monster of the Week where we're looking at a fear of Mulder's, this fear that he's been looking for his sister all the time and actually she suffered a fate that was almost worse than death. That would be, that's what the dad tells Mulder in the beginning. When Mulder and Scully go to tell that surviving parent that they found the remains of the little girl.
Talk about uncomfortable.
He tells them that. He says, I thought that not knowing was better, but now that I do know, I don't, and Mulder feels that because he's like, I'm going to experience that, and eventually he does. It's like him preparing himself for that eventuality in some ways.
Mulder's character was very strong in this episode, even though it was very personal, he was using it to his advantage throughout the...
Well, he said the little girl lives. That's the thing. The little girl in the story dies, but the little girl in real life lives. So... there you go.
I did like the fact that in order to remind us about the little girls and everything, the little, or his trademark was cutting the hearts out of the girls' dresses, kind of, and as a keepsake.
Taking a trophy from his victims, yeah.
Yeah, that was...
serial killer tendencies we learn about on the X-Files.
Yeah, man.
Just wait till we get to Donnie Pfaster. Talk about trophies.
Making you uncomfortable all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Although this episode...
it was a nice touch, though.
This episode was more... was not overtly... gory or scary as much as it was, suggestive and I think psychologically frightening because we never saw any of the bad things happen to the girls. We just kind of felt and heard. And also...
they really left it up to you to use your imagination.
Exactly,
there.
Which is word. Yeah. X-Files does that really well. And also, we should give a lot of credit to guest actor Tom Noonan, who played Roach, who's a local NYC actor, who's a really tremendous actor. He's done a lot of stage stuff. He's also a writer as well in his own right. But we should give a lot of credit to that particular feeling to that actor, because he played in the episode guide. They describe John Lee Roche, the character, as banally repellent, I think is what they call him, banally repellent, and I think that is a perfect way to describe Tom Noonan's performance, where he's just this like repellent person who also, like many other serial killers on the show, Pusher, Modell, we just talked about, fixated on Mulder because he feels like Mulder can understand him. This happens to Mulder a lot because he's a good profiler. Yeah. Mulder's a really talented profiler. So people like John Lee Roche think that they're connected to him. They think like, oh, he's the only one who understands me. So they think like they're soulmates. Hey
man,
like,
they're crushing on Mulder. It's all right. It tends to fucking happen on the XFiles apparently.
Good point. But that's what Tom Noonan said, is that like in his heart when he was playing the part and he was in these scenes with Mulder, that he thinks of Mulder as his soulmate, that when Mulder is acting, grossed out or horrified by the things that Roach did, Roach is like, but this is our life together. Like, why are you talking about this way?
He was lonely.
Yeah.
And he found a friend.
Yeah.
In a very weird way.
Yeah. Serial killers on the XFiles, they just want love. I mean, that's the end. That's the ultimate thing, is that serial killers on the XFiles really teach us that
not the best way to do it.
They're looking for connections that they can't get any other way. Yeah. We should also point out before we wrap this up that something else that's really cool about this is the references to Alice in Wonderland. Mad Hatter was the code name for Roach.
It was written on the rocks as well. And
and all the paper hearts were in the Alice in Wonderland book, which was written by Lewis Carroll. The reference here is that Lewis Carroll was supposed to have had a fixation with prepubescent girls. So this was the Roach connection, was this same fixation. Thanks, XFiles. Information that I have now. Information you can't unknow.
Man. It was great. It was uncomfortable, but it was great. Just,
Yeah, Roach is one of the scariest monsters, and he's a human. He doesn't really have anything supernatural about him.
Yeah, that's what makes him more terrifying. Like, he's a real person.
He's just a human monster, and we encounter a lot of these.
Yeah.
Just wait till we get to Donnie Faster. That's what I keep saying. The ultimate. Dude. Yeah, coming soon. Keep investigating with us on the KFiles. We're running the gauntlet of the worst monsters, the worst serial killers the show in the new year. It's fun stuff. I'm your host, Katie. You can find me at KMoles on social media if you'd like to follow me and such.
And I'm your co-host, Kryzzalia. You can find me on all social media at Kryzzalia, and we're coming at you from HollywoodRedux.com.
Yep, Hollywood Redux. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week with a new investigation. The truth is already here.
See you guys. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like that, please look at more content right over here. If you want to follow us and check out what we're doing, click right here. Have you checked out our store? Click right there. Dude, shirts, mugs, hats, some products, I guess, whatever. Just go shopping. Do it. Spend. And subscribe, please.